Yes, guys, it's Suki from BTS TV. Now, guys, don't forget, click subscribe, drop a like. It's always really appreciated. Today, Lesiak, four-time British champion, back in those golden UKBFF days. You can see plenty of memorabilia behind him. Two of the Arnold certificates there, a lot of gold. Those old school British title trophies. We never see them again, do we?
Yes, I mean, I've retired now like 7 years. So the newest one I had was 7 years ago, basically. I actually, these are so old that say that one, it was bronze back then. And I got my brother to spray them gold because they're first place trophies. And I don't want a bronze one. As the years went on, they changed it and color coded it. So you had bronze, silver, and gold. So we got them resprayed and did them up and made them look a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was back right in the day when only one pro card a year was given out in the UK. A little bit different to today, I guess.
Mate, well, I've had you just mentioned that. Let's go into it straight away. I did a post last week about the whole new IFBB Pro card rule. I don't know if you saw it. Did you get a chance to see it?
Is this when if you're not an active pro for 3 years, they're going to take your pro card
Yeah.
away? Yeah.
So, like, the feedback for that was actually positive. People were like, you know what? Yeah, that's the rule is that's all good. But the flip side is what got people talking. So Lee Priest, Rich Kaspari, Chris Cormier, Jay Cutler, Milos, they all talk about this subject, saying it's not the rule that's the issue. It's the volume of pro cards that's being awarded. Now, mate, you came from an era where there was only one pro card that was awarded in each category each year in the UK. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on the whole IFBB Pro card being awarded? Because last year, have a guess how many UK competitors got IFBB Pro card?
Oh gosh. Because there's so many different categories as well now. I have no idea. I'm out of touch. I'm going to go with 50.
Oh, mate, that's close. 42.
42 cards in 1 year. It's insane. So back in the day, it was one pro card per year, and then they brought in a few different rules along the stages where, for a very short time, each class winner won a pro card, but that got scrapped. And then they brought a point system. If you get so many points, you get a pro card. So I think if you get 100 points, you get a pro card. I had about 1,000 points, and they still denied me of mine, but that's another story. And if you win your category 3 times, you can fly and get pro card. Um, and then you've got to win the overall, basically. So yeah, there was a few exceptions, but there was only one per year normally. So today, giving out so many pro cards, I mean, the way the sport's evolved, I see it as it's great for the sport and getting people on stage, getting the crowds packed out as a business and money making, but it's killing the sport in my eyes because it's so watered down now. There's not many. Say there's not many good athletes. There's good athletes, but there's so many bad athletes in the mix that it really waters it down. So there's so many different federations. There's so many different categories. There's all these pro cards. Most people get a pro card now. They don't even compete ever again. They just want to get the pro card to say I'm pro, because if they got onto an actual pro stage, they're going to get blown away. They couldn't do anything. So what's the point of them getting the pro card in the first place? It's all a money making scheme, isn't it? You got to pay for your pro card, but then again, to be an amateur, you got to pay to compete. Um, this always amazed me in bodybuilding is when you become a pro at anything, what does profession mean? You get paid for your profession, right? So when you become a pro bodybuilder, it's not the case. You have to pay them to be a pro. You have to pay them every year to renew your card. You have to pay to travel and compete. Uh, I remember when I competed at the Arnold in America. It cost me about £3,000 to compete. Bearing in mind, I never earned a penny back throughout my whole career competing. It would cost me £3,000 each time I competed, and I'm against guys in different countries that their countries are paying them. I mean, one guy, he was getting like 35,000 euros a month to be an amateur at the Arnold. Like, how can you compete with that? So, I mean, I loved it back then that you could only get one pro card because the best of the best from England, only the best would get their pro card. But also, I really don't see the UK pushing athletes in any sports other than maybe football, soccer. So it's hard in the UK to get any decent sponsorship or get pushed as an athlete into anything compared to other countries, the way I see it.
I
So
mean,
yeah,
getting sponsored. I mean, back then when you got IFBB Pro card, Dennis James mentioned it in his podcast that when someone got a pro card, everyone around the world knew because it's limited. And of course, sponsorship deals would fall in that person's lap because they're one of one getting a pro card. Now, of course, you've got so many people getting a pro card. Yes, it's become saturated, but of course, on a sponsorship point of view, there's going to be so many IFBB pros. It's IFBB pro status isn't enough now. It's all about also about your social media following. What's that next to your IFBB pro status? But I wanted to ask you because on the Lee Priest documentary, you had a segment where you were talking about the fact that, I mean, you just mentioned just then that you probably could have been awarded your IFBB Pro card. But yeah, do you remember exactly what you said in that documentary?
we went through the whole thing, but a lot of it was cut out, so that not the full story's on there. But vaguely, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it was because I clipped it and I put it on the page because it's just hilarious. It was something like, what, I don't like the taste of like kissing ass. There it is. So what? I mean, just talk to me a bit about your experience then, back then, because it seemed like it wasn't just about winning your overall. There's a lot more to it in regards to try and get that IFBB Pro status. So you're a full-time British champion. I mean, Jesus, full-time British champion right now should be well, you're a pro after one British title. So what was the story back there, or maybe why you weren't awarded that pro status when it was so prestigious back then?
So basically, like I say, you win to get anywhere in the UK. You've got to do like a local show. You got to win that show to get an invite to the British. Then only the winners of each show go to the British finals. So it's the best of the best in Britain. Then you have to win your category to go to the overall. Then only the overall will get the pro card. One person a year. So I was in the overall, like, 4 times. But each time I got picked, like, I'm not saying it was unlucky. I was against people like Flex Lewis, who won. I was against people, Nathan Diasha beat me. Sasan beat me. These are incredible bodybuilders. And on the day, they smashed me. Like, I have no problem with that whatsoever. There was amazing athletes. And it was a shit luck. Like, I probably would have won the year if Nathan never turned up. He came out of retirement. He looked incredible, and he rightfully won. But other occasions, wherever there's money, there's corruption. So all sports, there's a bit of corruption in it. And unfortunately, it happens in bodybuilding as well. And the Lee Priest documentary dove into that just a little bit. Of Lee's been penalized so many times for being open and just saying what he thinks, and he never talks shit. He just tells the truth, and sometimes they don't like you to say things that they don't want other people to hear. In that aspect, I'm a little bit lightly, and I'll open my mouth, and when I see something's right or wrong, I'll say when it's wrong, and I don't agree with it. It's not where I'm going to lick their ass and keep my mouth shut just to keep them happy. So basically, this all stemmed off from when Lee came over and he did it was a UK tour, did many different gyms. We had him at our gym in Birmingham. It's Simon Fan's gym, Ultimate Fitness in Birmingham. So we had Lee coming over. At the time, Simon was involved with the UKBFF. He put a few shows on. He had just brought back the Grand Prix down in London. Amazing show. He put about £250,000 of his own money into that show, which he lost, just to bring it back. Incredible athletes. I was supposed to do that show, but I missed my little spot on stage. That's another story. But basically, Lee was on his way to the gym. We'd sold hundreds of tickets, and Bill Turney, who was the president of UKBFF, he has a massive problem with Lee Priest. So he rung Simon, and he did this to every gym that Lee was going to, and said, "Oh, I've heard a rumor that you got Lee coming to your gym." And he's like, "Well, it's no rumor. I've been advertising it for the last couple of months. Like, he's on his way here." And he said, "Oh, you do know he's a lifetime banned athlete from UKB, from IFBB, so you can't associate with him or have him at your gym." And Simon's like, "Well, that's my business. Like, I can have who I please at my gym. I've got people here waiting for him. I'm not going to turn them away and tell him he can't come." So basically, Bill said to him, "If you have Lee at the gym, you can't associate with UKBFF anymore." So Simon said, "Okay, fine." So they kicked him out. So he's no longer doing any shows for them or anything. He actually got chucked out of a show because of that. And then Lee came. We did the seminar. It was a great success. We went food. We became good friends. And from that point time then, when I started sharing pictures, me and Lee and stuff online, I started getting ridiculed and knocked down in places. There's a few shows where if I hadn't blatantly won, I would have been second, and they give me like fifth or something. Come fourth in another one. It was very controversial, but it was obvious that I was getting pushed down in placing for that. Then in their rules, if you win your category 3 times, you can apply for pro card. So I won it 3 times. I applied, and they denied it for no reasons. So I won it a 4th time. You denied it again. We brought the point system in. You get 100 points. I had about 1,000. And he said, "Oh, we scrapped that now. We can't do that." A couple of occasions, I believe that I had won and not got placed. So in their rules, I think I won the pro card 3 times. In my head, I believe I won it probably 5, but can only go with their rules. So they just kept denying me. And then I was prepping for another show, British again. And one of the judges, he turned around to me, because a few of the judges, they would all say, "Dean, you deserve your pro card. We're pushing for it." They go to the committee and Bill shoot them down every time. So I was going for it again, and one of the judges said, "Dean, Bill's never going to give you your pro card while you associate with Lee." And I was like, "Come on, that sounds pathetic. Like, I don't believe this. This can't be real." And I thought about that, and I was getting ready for the show, and I thought, you know what, let's put it to the test. So Lee was over. We went for food. I posted this picture of us all at the table, bigging everybody up, saying about Lee, "Isn't it amazing when your childhood heroes, you become friends with them," and blah, blah, blah. The next day, I got this long message via somebody else from Bill, basically saying, "How dare you associate yourself online with Lee? You know he's a banned athlete, blah, blah, blah. Take it down." Basically telling me I can't be friends with Lee and certain other people. So that's when I wrote a message back, and I just said, "Look, Bill, I've always been loyal to the UKBFF because their rules, if you compete with another federation, you're banned."
God.
So I was always loyal for 14 years, and I said I'll always be loyal to the UKBFF until the day you tell me who I can and can't be friends with. And that was the day that I walked away from competing, hung my trunks up, and just said, there is no point in putting all this time, this effort.
What year was that?
Oh God, I'm terrible with years. It'd be on one of these.
How close was that before
maybe
2015?
I got on there 15, 2010, yeah. So I'm guessing about 2015, maybe 16 or 17. I can't remember.
So
about 7-8 years ago.
That's only around the same time, maybe, where UKBFF lost the rights for the IFBB Pro status, and then Two Bros came along.
Wasn't long after that, yeah. So and then like I did one more show after that for the PCA.
Yeah.
They were begging me to do this show. They're putting on a pro show. They had some amazing athletes. Sean Tavernier did it.
Oh yeah, I'll say.
Peter Molar was supposed to do it. It was at Body Power. And they were saying, "Come on, Dean, you gotta come out of retirement." There was some good prize money up for grab, and they talked me into it. So I said, "Okay." So I did that PCA. They said, "Well, whoa! You can't do PCA show. You got to do the pro show." I said, "Yeah, but I'm not pro, am I?" "Yeah, but you're too advanced to be on stage with them." So I said, "Okay," and honestly, I messed the show up. I just missed out on the top 6. I think I would have broke the top 5 if I come my best, but I prioritized other people and messed it up. So that's my bad. But I came about 6th, I think. It was a good lineup.
But going back to like UKBFF, I mean, obviously, Bill Turney, no matter what you say, he played a very heavy part in the downfall of the UKBFF, which when you find on that next attempt, if you try and get a pro card and you didn't, and that's when Bill Turney wrote you the message.
Yeah.
It was only shortly followed by them actually the decline of UKBFF. And
yeah,
I mean, how are you feeling right now with UKBFF having seen that it's still going, but are a fraction for what they were back in those peak years when you used to compete?
Yeah, it's horrible to see, to be honest. Even a NABA show. I mean, back then you had UKBFF and you had NABA, and that was pretty much it. So NABA were normally big fucking guys, but they're usually not as nice physiques as the UKBFF because it's the only way you could get an actual pro card. And there was only 2 feds. So then you come to the British, and it was impressive. You look forward to the super heavyweight lineup. You got like 5, 6 monsters on stage that could all be all big enough to be on the Olympia stage. It was impressive. Now, gosh, after that whole split, and I didn't go to the show, but I seen pictures. The British final, the best of the best. It looked like 50 people in the crowd. It was atrocious. Barely one decent physique in the whole show. It's really massively been watered down. And there's so many federations, people going all over the place elsewhere. I mean, you got the PCA come, you got the Two Bros. There's oh god knows about 20 different federations, aren't there, in the UK?
Talk about the federations. I mean, we're now at a point where look, UKBFF have declined to really the bottom end of federations of UK.
Pretty much.
NABA have gone through some changes in regards to their in-house presidents, where there's a big focus on just redeveloping the NABA look and trying to bring it more to present day. So it's exciting to see what we do in 2025. But there's no doubt that the top tier is Two Bros and PCA. And this year, it's going to be the 3rd year in a row where the British finals are on the same date. And this is all like feeling like UKBFF all over again, where there's a control of the athletes, forcing them to have a choice. Now, it's worth stating, PCA did put the date out first, and then Two Bros put the date out afterwards. What's your thoughts seeing the current day of bodybuilding, where you've now got these 2 massive federations, organizations, but the British finals on the same date for the 3rd year running?
I just think it's ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, when you look at a show, and this is where I said they used to go wrong at the UK BFF. We'd be backstage at the British. There's not one mirror. There's no weights. There's no nothing. You're just in this cold, horrible ass hall. You can't have any tanning and stuff there. You had to be pre-tan. There's no mirrors. There's nothing. They treat you like shit. It's get in, get out. But when you think about it, like your athletes are what brings people in. We only go to the show to see the athletes, and the more spectacular the athletes are, the more people come to the show. So why don't you look after your athletes? So when we was competing, like you're an amateur bodybuilder. You should be allowed to compete and do whatever the fuck you want. So why are you dictating and telling these athletes that you can only compete in our federation or you're banned? To me, that's completely wrong because you don't own them. If you was paying them a wage, then you could say so, right? So now they're not doing that. But for them to put two different big federations, the British finals, on the same day, that's basically doing the same thing, isn't it? Choose which one you want to do because you can't do both. Uh, you should help the athletes and allow them to be where they want to be. Sometimes they need experience. They need to get on stage and compete more often. Why can't you compete in two different federations if you're not a pro in their leagues? So I don't understand why they do that. It's causing more divide, isn't it?
Who do you think is the number one federation out of the two when it comes to the UK side?
Oh,
In
you know
your
what?
eyes?
Like I'm out of touch with them now. I don't really go to shows and stuff, so I don't see. When PCA first started, I thought big things. They're smashing it, and they were putting in
Yeah.
a lot of prize money worldwide. You had people like Peter Mola. You had Sean Tavernier going over there to the PCA, and they cleared up. They earned some good money in a year, way more money than what they could achieve in the IFBB. So you see, Peter, I think he did one year, one show, China show. He won like $100,000 or something in one show. He, where did he come on the Olympia stage in the classics? He would have got pennies. Like the amount of money you put in to get to that level. I remember talking to Sean Tavernier. He came fifth at the Olympia in the 212. I said, "How much do you win, Sean?" He said, $500. He
Oh,
said that
oh,
He said they didn't cover my plane flights, let alone his fucking GH cycles and food and prep and all the rest of it. And people were saying, "Oh, when are you going to get back on stage? When you're going to compete against Flex?" And he's like, "Honestly, I can't afford to. It costs me so much more than what I win. I, I just need to sort my life out and put my energy and focus into something else." When he went to PCA, he made some good money in a short amount of time. Why wouldn't you do that? So going back to your question, I've seen big things for PCA, but they seem to have pulled the money back quite a lot. They brought in a few rules and stuff where you can't earn so much money at certain shows, and they try to cap it and level it. But there's still money to be made there, so it's good. They got some good athletes.
they've increased the prize money for the World Championships because it's a
Okay.
10th year. It's a 10th year anniversary. There's one chap, Ike Go. He's in men's physique. He's in all 4 European pro shows for PCA in 2024, and he won 2K in each one. And
Wow.
I said to everybody else, I like he won 8K in my year. That was more prize money than any of the current IFBB Pro men's physique UK competitors, apart from Ryan Terry. Apart from Ryan, he actually earned more prize money than any of the current IFBB Pro men's physique competitors who represent UK. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a heavy investment on PCA side. And I mean, I know you say you're a bit out of touch on the bodybuilding side. And back then, when you competed, the British finals was the UKBFF British finals. And like I said, it was an event. It was a weekend event.
Yeah.
You knew about it, and I remember the one British finals. I think it was maybe 2015, and I remember seeing like Mark Hector. He was like 6 in his height category. I mean, the names you saw there who didn't achieve pro status, who if they competed now will probably win it in their first show. But right now as well, we got over 20 odd federations of the UK. All of them having the British, all of them having the British finals. So, who do you see right now having the British finals? The main British finals is this federation. Is there a federation where you feel they're the ones that hold the true British final title?
I think it's split between the PCA and the Two Bros is one you get IFBB Pro card now, isn't it? The proper real one. Yeah. So the way I see it, like anyone who has the capability of going anywhere in bodybuilding, Two Bros have got them because that's the only option you can get the IFBB Pro card. But then, like I say, if people are earning money and doing well in the PCA, you're going to get a few really good athletes go down that alley, but you will get a lot of not so good athletes go there because they could still achieve something and
Yeah.
do well and make a lot more money than what I ever did in winning the British titles. So I'll have to say that Two Bros is got them, and that's what UKBFF used to have, and they knew they had it, so that's why they would treat the athletes like shit and take the piss. Is because that was your only way you could get the IFBB Pro card.
Yeah.
And that's the status, and that's what everybody wants. Every bodybuilder wants to achieve. Their dream is to get on the Olympia stage. A lot of them are very delusional, but that's the goal, right?
Well, look, when you see social media content, YouTube videos, series, it's all revolving around who've got IP Pro status because in the end, it's sexy, it's sales, it's the big one. Or you don't just talk about the Arnolds or Olympia, talk about all the other shows, the Pittsburgh, New York, Detroit. Sponsors right now are only looking at the majority are probably looking at those who've got IP Pro status because it holds substance. I want to know, what have you heard about, obviously, Lee Priest reactivating his IFBB Pro card?
I haven't spoken to him yet about it, but knowing Lee, he's dying to get back on stage. So I reckon there's something in there that I'm surprised they give it him. I'm amazed, but he's been banned that many times. But I think he's going to try and get into shape and go for the Masters Olympia. Is it over 50s, isn't it?
Over 40s.
Over 40s.
Over 40s. So this year is Tokyo. But yeah, so you believe that we could potentially see Lee back on stage?
I would love to see Lee back on stage. We know he has the nerve damage and he can't train anything like he used to. But I know Lee being Lee, he's a crazy motherfucker. And he will get into incredible shape if he puts his mind to it and wants to do it. So, I can't say anything. I haven't spoke to him about it yet, but I would not be surprised if you hear stories and rumors flying around that he might be prepping for a Masters show or something.
On a business perspective, it would be box office.
Epic.
Like the build up to the narrative Lee Priest back on stage. Every media outlet within bodybuilding will be covering it for non-stop. The amount of coverage Lee would have with a new generation of people that didn't grow up watching him compete. That would be huge.
I don't think people understand the freakiness that Lee brought to stage. And you see some videos, he looks like, oh, fuck, what is that? But you can't you cannot visualize and see what was in real life on a video or a picture. He was so freaky. People haven't seen that. And he's never going to be that again. But to come back and be able to get on stage and show people a glimpse of the real Lee Priest, I think it will blow up and cause a bit of a stir in the bodybuilding world. I'd love to see it myself, just to get him back in condition, get him training hard again. But he's never going to be what he used to be, obviously. And he has a lot of damage down his one side and stuff from a car accident. But I think it's a clever move. He can't really lose, can he? Because he's not going to look as good as he did, but he's going to look great. So he comes back. If he loses, people are still like, wow, look where you've come from. You're 50 odd years old. You look incredible. If he wins it, then it's like unbelievable. So no matter what he does, the fame's going to skyrocket and it keep him again in the limelight.
We're having the same kind of chat back in this reminds me of 2016 where Kevin Lerone came back and competed at Olympia, and everyone was thinking, could he roll back the years? And when he stood next to it, when he came out, obviously it wasn't the case because his lower half just couldn't catch up with the top half. But you still had the moment. You had the moment to have Kevin Lerone next to Phil Heath, which people never thought they'll see. So it's what I do like about this whole Masters Olympia. It does give an avenue for maybe some of those retired competitors that this generation didn't get to see, and then they come back for maybe just one show. But at least on that one show, it's a level playing field of similar age group.
Yeah, incredible to bring that back, because I think bodybuilding today is so different to bodybuilding back then. So to get that clash of the old and new, I think fans want to see that. It's going to sell a lot of tickets and make a lot of money.
If look, hypothetically, if we had the Lee Priest from 1997, those golden years where certain shows it was untouchable. I mean, look, he beat Ronnie Coleman on a number of occasions. How would that Lee Priest have handled the 212 class in this era? Because I did a side-by-side video of him next to Keon Pierce. Yeah, I popped there, and Lee Priest put a nice comment in there to say he really hopes that Keon will make the move to Open. He really could see him doing damage, could potentially win the Open in 2028. When you saw that video, I mean, how would you see it?
Okay, so Keon this year impressed me more than anybody. The whole Olympia, I was looking at him in disbelief. The gains that he'd made over the year, but to see the proportions, the size of his waist, how his hamstrings came, everything, the detail, he blew my mind. He was incredible. Seeing lots of things flying up. How would Lee stand next to Keon? That is two very different times. Back then, I mean, look at Lee's physique back then. It was mind-blowing. It was crazy. It was freaky. But none of them had striated glutes and hamstrings. It was a completely different look. That's not what they was pushing for. Bodybuilding's evolved and changed now that if you don't get on stage with super shredded glutes, you get marked down. You'll come nowhere. And sometimes the physique looks better when it's slightly fuller and bigger, depending on the physique, rather than, say, me, for instance, I had to be grainy, rock hard, shredded to look impressive. If I come in a little soft, I look shit. So certain physiques, they come in a little soft and bigger, and they look better than when they lose that bill of size and come in grainy. I think Lee is that physique. He looked better. I don't know, he was always shredded. He looked amazing, but compared to how people get on stage now, and there's not like an ounce of water on them, and it's all focused around their glute area. That his best physique and their best physique is just very different. I think if you would have took him back to then, Lee would have won. You take Lee now, bring him here, Keon would win. It's very different the way they judged the whole show, isn't it? But Lee was way more freakier. Keon is put together so much nicer. The tiny waist, the flare, the shoulder, everything is insane.
Talking about judging, did you by any chance get to see the post that, well, it wasn't just myself, but quite a few other people posted as well, of the show from just the weekend just gone, of the transgender classic physique competitor who stepped on stage at the muscle contest in LA?
I may have seen the picture. Was this? Did they have like boobs or something with those topless and stickers over the nipples or something like that?
Nipple cover as well, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I didn't really pay much attention to it. I didn't even know if that was real or not. I think
so.
It was,
yeah. So it was legit because actually I had a call from one of the judges over at over that show, just catching up to ask him how was this perceived? How did it get to that point? And what they told me was that they didn't even know until the person stepped on stage. So it wasn't even that it was communicated backstage to maybe go bring attention to judges or have the conversation with the promoter saying, look, if this goes ahead, there could be some potential backlash or negativity, and especially it being in California, where the transgender competing is a very touchy subject. But of course, the judges said, look, we've obviously had to still judge it anyway. That has now opened up a can of worms in regards to transgender competitors competing at a show where there are other transgender federations where people can compete in. I know it's a very touchy subject, but I'm just keen to understand, maybe putting you in a perspective. If you were one of the judges at that point, what would have you done?
Well, see, I see a lot of corruption and bullshit in a lot of federations. So the problem is, when you're judging a bodybuilding show, it's not like two guys running 100-meter sprint. Whoever crosses the line first, you can clearly see a winner, right? Or a fight, somebody knocks everyone out, he's the clear winner. Bodybuilding is always down to an opinion. So this is where it all gets a little bit of a gray area. Judges should have sat a judging course to be taught how to judge. There's a certain clientele that you're supposed to look certain ways, and then you have to follow those guidelines, and then it's still down to your opinion what you think is a better physique. So I've seen federations where, I mean, they've asked me to be a judge before, and I said, I've never trained to be a judge. But, oh yeah, but you've competed, you know what you're looking at. That's wrong to me. You need to know exactly. And when they bring all these different categories in, I've asked judges, like, no word of a lie, when the bikini category first came out, I was disgusted at this, that I went to the judge, one of the judges on the panel, and I said, can you help me understand? Like, I can't see the clientele, what you're looking for, like, how do you define the winner? And he went, you know what? I don't really know. I just picked the one that I would fuck the most. And that came from a judge's mouth. And I was disgusted. I was like, what if that was my wife or my daughter on stage and that's what you're saying? I couldn't believe it. It's like a beauty pageant, not a show. So when you start putting mixed genders into different categories, how can they be in the clientele that you're looking for? So you've got to be, so say for instance, a male lineup. If you got any gyno, you get marked down, you'll get disqualified or whatever. You get penalized for that. So how can a woman stand there with massive glands, whatever transformation she's gone through, having cut out or everything, and you can clearly see what would be gyno in a guy, or the other way around, a muscular guy who's been full of testosterone for God knows how many years, who's decided to now be a woman, has a massive advantage over everybody else in that category. We have very different physiques, whether you're born male or female. So if you want to dress up as a woman, that's cool with me. If you believe that you're a woman, then you've got a mental issue in my eyes. If you like to dress as a woman, that's cool. You do that. That's not a problem. But when you start saying, I am a woman, then there's an issue there because you're not. No matter how much you want to be. If I want to be a cat and I start acting like a cat and meowing like a cat, it doesn't mean I'm a cat, does it? I'm still a human and I can't get away from that. So the way I see it is, if people want to do that, that's completely fine. But you can't pretend to be something you're not and compete in that category. That's wrong. So how do you please everybody? Because these people, they want to compete, they want to go on stage, but also they want to live their lives like that. So if they're going to allow that, in my opinion, open up a category for transgender, whether you're man or woman, whichever way you want to be, and there should be a certain judging panel and clientele to what they're looking for, because you can't just jump into a male or female show and meet the clientele for what the judges should be looking for. You're going to get disqualified.
Do you think the NPC would ever do that? Would ever take that? That's a big leap. I know I put a post out saying, should the NPC look at creating a category for transgender athletes. It doesn't have to be at every show. Maybe it's only a selected couple of shows. But do
I
you ever
think
see that be a possibility?
could you ever see bikini or the men's fitness before when it was for just bodybuilding? No,
Mm.
but they seen it as making money, more categories, more money as a business. It worked well. So I think they're making up categories all the time. Like what's that new one? Like the
Fit
fit
model.
bod one. It's like women who haven't trained or very little. Like, how do you determine, like, where's the cutoff point? Is she too good now to be in that category, or is she like she's genetically gifted? She never trained in her life, but she looks good, so she wins the category. Like, it's crazy. It's madness to me. So I think if they can make money from another category, they'd seriously consider it. Now your problem is, I think if Trump hadn't won in America, that category would probably be out now. And because of the controversialness now that Trump's putting his foot down and talking sense and saying there's only two genders, which come on, that's a fact. No matter what you want to be, that's fine, but you're not. So if you want, you go into you're a man. You was born a man. No matter how much you want to be a woman, you cannot be a woman, can you? So I think if you can make money from it, they will make that category if it's not too controversial and it won't hurt their business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me, honestly.
I was just very surprised that the competitor managed to get on stage and nothing was raised. You know, the backstage team or the judges, nobody made the call to say, "Look, we carry this on.
Yeah,
We're gonna open a whole new subject that's the NPC are going to have to at some point. They're going to have to make some sort of announcement. They can't
yeah.
sugarcoat this or put it under the rug because they do need to make a stance in regards to where does this stand.
It's
You know,
almost like they're scared to say anything because they don't want any backlash. They don't want to deal with it, so they just bury their head in the sand. It's fucking ridiculous. When we competed back in the day, they had people like the guy who got me into bodybuilding was this. As you can see him here, his name is Jeff Collins. He was a
yeah,
photographer, and he was part of the EFBB. He was the treasurer. He got me into bodybuilding. Said I think you could do really well. You should give it a go. But one of his jobs was backstage that if he looked at you and seen that you are nowhere near good enough to be on the British stage, he'd say, "Look, I'm really sorry, but you can't get on in that state. You're too fucking fat." And there was a cutoff point. Like you see the. You ever been to a strip club? I used to work in them before, and you get the higher class strip clubs, and then you get the lower class ones, and the lower ones are all dirty, fat, horrible women. The higher class ones, they're very high class, and they have a woman in there that looks after the girls, and they do that exact same thing.
yeah,
Because if you're ugly and you're fat, you're going to bring the whole club down. You need to look beautiful and stunning. So she's there saying, "No, you can't work here. Fuck off." That's what he used to do in bodybuilding, and you had to be at a certain standard to be able to get onto stage. Now, if you say that, it's like, "Oh, you hurt my feelings. Oh, I'm going to sue you. I wanted to compete." Like, fuck off. You can't get on stage. You're embarrassing yourself. Like, so what do they do now? Instead of telling them to fuck off, they think, "Oh, we can make more money out of this. Let's design and make another category to fit these people in that don't look very good." So that's when all these other categories start to become like before, it was like, "Oh, you don't train the legs, so we're going to make broad shorts class." And then people turn up, they're not even dieting properly. So, like on the girls' side of things, the bikini girls were getting really good condition, but no muscle on them whatsoever. And then other girls are turning up and they're fat. It looks like they've never trained. So they're like, "Oh, let's make another category and call it wellness. And we just judge it around your ass." And I know like some of the girls on top levels, they look incredible, but on the amateur stages, they some of them, not just the girls, the guys as well, but they look like they haven't trained. And I think it needs somebody there to stop beating around the bush and not care about people's feelings so much, and just put your foot down, have these rules and keep them there to keep the standard at a decent level. Like when bodybuilding was bodybuilding, before bikini and all fitness came in, they're like beauty pageants. If you're judging somebody on their hair, their look, their ass, and their boob job, what has that got to do with bodybuilding? It's a beauty pageant. Great, it brings loads of people, it brings money, but in my opinion, it's not bodybuilding. So you should, if it was down to me, I'd have two separate days, one for modeling and one for bodybuilding, and it should be set down the line completely different. But it's still money, isn't it? It's now seen as a business, and all they care about is making money. How can we keep making money? Screwing people over.
So before we wrap this up, so if you had to change, if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing in bodybuilding to make it better, what one thing would that be?
Oh gosh, I think exactly that.
Yeah,
Have somebody there making sure that you're at a certain level for you to be able to compete. And I'm not saying like you look shit, you can't compete. Split it, make the amateur of amateur shows, and then I know you get lots of different categories, and you've got your juniors and you've got your intermediates, and that's where it should be.
novice. Yeah,
But even on a novice stage, if you've got a big fat gut hanging out and very little muscle, you shouldn't be up there. If somebody needs to tell you, like I don't care about your feelings, you're going to embarrass yourself a lot more standing on that stage. And the problem is, people around them blowing smoke up their ass and saying, "Oh, you look amazing," and more so with the women when she looks like shit, and all her girlfriends are around her saying, "Oh, babe, you look amazing. You're so brave. You got up there." It's not brave to stand on stage in a bikini in front of a load of people. It's like most of these girls are doing that on their Instagrams all day anyway to try and get attention. So it's not a brave thing to do. You're not, all you're doing is watering down the whole sport. And for actual athletes, you're making it worse. And I see with the sponsorship side of things, it's so watered down. A lot of the sponsorships are going towards people that have big followings and not so much people that have won stuff. The top guys in the world are always going to be sponsored, but guys are getting huge sponsorships just because they have a following. And that's also bad as well, because when we learned how to train, we read a lot of books, we listened to the people that have consistently done it the best in the world. So I'd get around these people and I learned from them because they obviously have the recipe. Now with social media, everybody's got their own say. Somebody, Bob down the road, he did one show and he looked like shit. All of a sudden, he's a prep coach and he's training people for hundreds and hundreds of pounds, putting them on these crazy drug stacks. She's getting some result because of the amount of drugs, but completely annihilating their health in the process. And then when they have problems, he's gone with his pockets full. You never see him again. It's a mess. Lots need to change. Not so much in the good athletes. Like I 100 times a day I do questions and answers on social media, and all I get is drugs, drugs, drugs. How many more drugs can I take? What other stacks can I take with this and that and blah blah blah? They never fucking come off the drugs, and it's all they talk about. But people now they're seriously damaging their health, and if you look better, Lee's a perfect example. Lee never took much at all. He'd have long periods off, and he took absolute minimum. He's a fucking freak of nature to be as big as he was doing what he did. So when people tells them what he's had, they don't believe him because they're taking 10 times the amount of what he had, and they look like shit because they're training shit, their diet shit, and they don't have his genetics. So I think something also needs to be done down the coaching side of things as well, the PT, and it's a mess, the whole industry.
well, I think that's a separate conversation for another day, mate. But look, Dean, really appreciate your time today, mate. To have a chat, give me plenty of there to use, and a lot of food for thought for a lot of people, especially the conversation on the coaching side. But definitely, I think that's a topic for another day. Dean, mate, always great to hear from you as well, and understand a bit more about obviously elaborating of the clips from the Lee Priest documentary. I know Lee said there was like loads of extra content that could have gone out, and maybe one day we might see some of his deleted scenes with you going into more detail on those aspects. But Dee, look, I really appreciate your time, mate.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on. It's awesome.
Take care of yourself, Dee. All right, mate.